We crashed everything in Daytona this weekend. The wheels are 18s, but we kept them clean. I'm Matt Faulkner, and this is Overtime. Daytona 500, we wrecked every car we had. A couple of them still finished okay. But since there's not really much more to talk about there, let's talk about wheels. We learned this weekend that too loose can actually feel too tight. So we've had loose wheels forever in our sport. Usually the driver reports a vibration, they come in, you tighten the nuts or you change the wheel, they go on. But we learned this week that too little torque on the wheels can actually result in too tight a nut when you go to fix it. What happens is when you get the nut too loose, the wheel starts vibrating on the hub, and when it vibrates against the hub and against the nut, it's an aluminum wheel, a steel nut. The aluminum from the wheel actually beds itself into the nut and fuses the wheel to the nut. So then when you pit 15 laps later for what you would normally think would be a loose nut, the nut's actually bonded itself to the wheel and you can't get it off or on. We've also noticed that the threads get damaged when you slam the nut on the hub too hard. We've seen some of that in pit practice over the winter, but we especially saw it in the race. Everybody's tasked to change tires as fast as they can, and so they're slamming these single nuts against the threads that are on the hub. And what that's doing is it's actually bending the lead end of the thread on the hub over, and then when you tighten the nut over that thread, it destroys the thread on the hub. There's no real way to fix it except for asking the tire changers to be quick but soft at the same time, which doesn't really work in our sport. So we've been examining the last couple days how to address that, what NASCAR is comfortable with us as far as massaging that thread lead in or doing something to it to make it more durable against the nut being slammed against it. It's been all over the news, it's been all over the radio, but there were a couple teams that were actually honing out the bore of the wheels and honing out the dowel pin holes. Their reasons for that are somewhat justified. And some of those teams claim to have consulted with NASCAR about it. That's yet to be determined. But they were honing out the bore of the wheel and the dowel pin holes because due to manufacturing tolerancing between the manufacturer of the hub and the manufacturer of the wheel, some wheels fit on too tight. We actually had one pit stop with the 19 during the race where a wheel was stuck on there and nothing was wrong. Like the nut spun right off, but the wheel was stuck on the hub. I think we ended up having like a 20-second pit stop because the wheel was stuck on there. So that is one case where you could totally argue that something needed to be done to the hub bore of the wheel or the dowel pin holes to make that wheel even possible to remove. So I think there's a question of whether those teams truly asked permission to modify the wheels. There was a meeting on that today. So they're still working through that and what we might be allowed to do to the wheels in the future. But I think there's definitely a necessity, and that's probably why those teams were doing it. I don't know that they were doing it to increase speed, though it definitely increases speed to be able to get the wheels off the car on a pit stop. That's all we have about wheels. If you do have any questions about wheels, definitely post in the comments section anything you'd like to know more.